Okay, so let's take a look at the second passage. Now let's also find out from where this passage has been extracted, as it's already mentioned, extracted with edits from George Orwell's Why I Write. Okay. So the author begins this way: from a very early age, I knew that when I grew up, I should be a writer. I had the lonely child's habit of making up stories and holding conversations with imaginary persons. I think from the very start, my literary ambitions were mixed up with the feeling of being isolated and undervalued. Now, as you can see, this presentation is in first person. So, the author is penning down his or her own, because it's George Orwell, his own thoughts. And he says from a very early age, so right from childhood, the author says that the feeling that he had about himself was that he wanted to be a writer. And he tells us why. Because he was a very lonely kind of child and his reclusive habits led him to creating stories, cooking up stories, and also conjuring up all imaginary beings or characters in his mind and talking to them or narrating these stories to them. Then he says, and I think from the very start, my literary ambitions were mixed up with the feeling of being isolated and undervalued. And then he tells us that the literary ambitions that he had, that he wanted to become a writer, were mixed up with these feelings of being isolated and also undervalued. I knew that I had a facility with words and a power of facing unpleasant facts. So he says that this is a facility. I mean, this is something that he considers a talent. I had a facility with words. So he had this facility or this talent that he was able to use words to create something. And this was coupled with the power of facing unpleasant facts. The unpleasant facts could be the fact that he considered himself to be undervalued because of being left isolated. And I felt that this created a sort of private world in which I could get my own back for my failure in everyday life. So he has a lot of negativity towards the kind of situation he had in life. He was a lonely child and he felt he was undervalued. Then he says that because of whatever talent he had, this facility with words or using words effectively, and also the power of being able to face facts that were unpleasant, both of these created in his mind a sort of a private world in which he says he could get his own back for failure. So, get my own back is an idiomatic usage, and to have someone's back means to have the support of somebody. So, he says he had his own support which helped him deal with any kind of failure that he faced on an everyday basis. I wanted to write enormous naturalistic novels with unhappy endings, full of detailed descriptions and arresting similes, and also full of purple passages in which words were used partly for the sake of their sound. I give all this background information because I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. Okay. So, he also then goes on to describe that he wanted to write those kind of novels which he says were naturalistic but which had unhappy endings. So, this is quite unusual of writers, and those that were full of detailed descriptions and sort of similes or comparisons, and full of purple passages in which words were used partly for the sake of their sound. I give all this background information because I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. So, he tells us why he is mentioned, what he is mentioned in this part, that he is giving us a background because anybody who reads this kind of text or novels should be able to know why any writer has presented things in the manner in which he says he wanted to present. Okay. His subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in, At least this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages like our own. But before he ever begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will never completely escape. It is his job to discipline his temperament, but if he escapes from his early influences altogether, he will have killed his impulse to write. So, his subject matter. Now, he says, I give all this background because I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing the background or early development when he started writing. So, now he goes on to making things general, any writer's motives, and that is why he uses the third person pronoun here, his. His subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in. At least this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages, the kind of times he grew in, which were chaotic, full of revolutions. But before he ever begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will never completely escape. It is his job to discipline his temperament, but if he escapes from his early influences altogether, he will have killed his impulse to write. Okay, so he tells us something which is conditioned on something else. What is it? It is his job, a writer's job, to discipline his temperament. Why? Because before even he begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude which is going to stick with him, be with him forever. Why is that? Because the times in which he grew up were tumultuous and revolutionary, and it is his job to discipline the temperament that he has inculcated or cultivated. But if he escapes from his early influences absolutely, then he would have killed his impulse to write. So, he is trying to connect and say that the urge to write or the influence to write something comes from the background from which a writer hails, and it gives the writer a different kind of temperament. But in case he tries to absolutely overcome that temperament, then it would also end up killing his impulse to write. So, that temperament is responsible for this creativity or the creative aspect of a writer, and he needs to nurture it and also control his temperament. I think there are 4 great motives for writing, at any rate for writing prose. They are: 1. Sheer egoism, desire to seem clever, to be talked about, to be remembered after death, to get your own back on grown-ups who snubbed in your childhood. So, this is the one of the 4 great motives, he says, beginning with sheer egoism, so that the ego can be satisfied, because during his childhood, then it was suppressed, or it was not given the kind of importance or appreciation that the child needed, or the writer as a child needed. The second is aesthetic enthusiasm, desire to share an experience which one feels is valuable and ought not to be missed. Then historical impulse. What is this now? Desire to see things as they are, to find out true facts and store them up for the use of posterity. Okay, and then political purpose. Desire to push the world in a certain direction, to alter other people's idea of the kind of society that they should strive after. Okay, so all of these are the 4 great motives that he has mentioned for writing, for any writing purpose. And with this excerpt or this extract comes to an end, and we move to the questions. The first one: George Orwell's loneliness during childhood led to what? Estrangement with his father. Did we come across anything like estrangement from his father? Well, this can be eliminated. Even if you are not aware of the meaning of the word estrangement, we can eliminate this choice based on his father, because there was no mention of any of his relatives, okay, or his parents. So, estrangement is when you have some hostility with somebody, and here it talks about his father. Unhappy days. Did we come across unhappy days? He says that every day, now let's go back to it so that we have clarity. He says every day he faced failure. That's what he says. He says that he wanted to write novels with unhappy endings, but we cannot go with unhappy days. Now, days which were reflective of his failure cannot be equated with unhappy days or considered to be the same. Okay, so we eliminate this. Making up stories, his loneliness during his childhood led to making up stories is correct from what we had read in the first paragraph. Okay, unpleasant incidents, there is no mention of unpleasant incidents per se. Okay, so this is also something which is beyond the scope of the passage, and we can eliminate it both logically and with reference referring from the part where something to this effect was mentioned. The next question. Why does Orwell give background information? Why? He had the lonely child's habit. B. It is essential to know the motives of writers. C. Because of his historic impulse. Or D. Due to aesthetic enthusiasm. So, consider the question properly. Why does the writer give background information? Now, in this part, he has mentioned that there are 4 great motives for writing, and in the paragraph before this, he says that I give all this background because I do not think one can assess. One is a reader can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. So, what should be the answer? It cannot be because of historic impulse or due to aesthetic enthusiasm, because they do not classify as reasons for giving information about early childhood. These are motives for writing, so we can eliminate them. He had the lonely child's habit. Is this the reason why he gives background information? He gives this as an information about himself. So, this also is not relevant to the question. It is essential to know the motives of writers based on background information, and so he gives background information to his writers or to his readers. B is what we go for. Okay. Question number 9. If a writer escapes from early impulses, he will what? Will he lose the urge to write? Be unable to imagine creatively? Be able to converse with imaginary characters, or be able to influence others? If he escapes from early impulses, he mentions that before he ever begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will not be able to completely escape, and then he says it is his job to discipline his temperament. So, on one hand he says that the times from which he hails, or the times which were there when he was growing up, have a lot of impact, or they influence his character, his emotions, and then this gives him an impulse to write. And this could also disturb his temperament, and he has to control that, because he has to be a little disciplined in order to create something, or creativity requires some kind of discipline. And then he says that while he has to discipline his temperament, keep his attitudes and emotions in check, he cannot escape from his early influences altogether, because those are the motives, or those give him the push to write, and if he does that, he would have killed his impulse to write. Okay. So, if a writer escapes from early impulses, what will he do? He will be able to influence others is absolutely incorrect. Be able to converse with imaginary characters has not come up with regard to what the question tries to make us answer. Be able to imagine creatively is not correct, but yes, lose the urge to write. That's why he says kill the impulse to write. So, the answer is option A, not very difficult, provided you have focused on the relevant parts. Question number 10. For the author, aesthetic enthusiasm is an important motive for writing because. So, again we need to find out a reason why aesthetic enthusiasm is an important motive. Go back to the part where he is given all these motives and check aesthetic enthusiasm. Desire to share an experience which one feels is valuable and ought not to be missed. Okay. So, it is an important motive for writing because it shapes thoughts, creates an artistic piece, becomes invaluable, or is non-utilitarian. Now, non-utilitarian it cannot be because the author mentions it as valuable and worthy enough to be shared. So, this can be eliminated without much of a thought. Because it shapes thoughts is not relevant. Because it creates an artistic piece also we did not come across, but yes, because it becomes invaluable. So, it is option C. Okay, I hope you are getting it. The next one is question number 11 now. The author strongly advocates writers to do what? A. Avoid any egoistic impression in their work. B. Apolitical in their approach. B. Contemporary in their treatment of their work, or none of the above. So, we have to be a little more thoughtful here because these give us a feeling as if one of them could be the answer. Why? Because of the words that have been picked up from the passage and put in individual choices. So, what does he advocate writers to do? To avoid any egoistic impression. Now, we did not come across any such recommendation or advice. So, this is not correct. Being apolitical in their approach, the word politics or political came up here. Political purpose can be understood as desire to push the world in a certain direction, to alter other people's idea of the kind of society that they should strive after. So, we cannot say that he has advocated writers to be apolitical in their approach. Okay. Be contemporary in the treatment of their work. Now, contemporary, this is with regard to the times in which these authors grew up, which the author tells us, or George Orwell tells us, were tumultuous and revolutionary. But then, is it an advice for writers of all times as a general advice that they need to be temporary in the treatment of their work? I don't think this is relevant at all. So, we go with D, which is none of the above. Okay. The next one, the last one here, 12. Which of the following is a synonym for the word tumultuous? I already told you tumultuous means something which is very disturbing, very chaotic, is full of some kind of upheaval or disturbance. A says chaotic, which is correct. B, turbulent, which is also correct. And C, disorderly, which is also correct. So, all these three are synonymous with the word tumultuous. Tumult means some kind of up and down or something which is not stable, steady, constant. Okay. So, we go with D, which is all of the above, and eliminate A, B, C. Okay. Now, when we have this kind of vocab question and we are asked to identify either a synonym or an antonym of any word which is used in any part of the passage. So, what should be our endeavor? We need to go back and read that sentence and then understand the idea or the context in which it has been used specifically in that part of the passage, and then go check the options to decide which we can go with or which we can eliminate. Okay. So, the first thing is to always know the actual general meaning of that word and then keep in mind the contextual meaning as well. Fine.